Good evening. Sorry to miss class today. As I might have already mentioned to some of you, work requires me to be in Georgetown University and Boston College this week. One good thing is I will not have to answer the many questions of my dear classmate Mr. Erwin Rojas. Erwin, you can email me your questions. The book that I was assigned is a book entitled International Entrepreneurship Education Issues and Newness. It is a compilation of 15 different articles, and the collection was edited by Alain Fayol and Heinz Klant. The word international seems apt from the perspective that the writers include authors from 10 different countries across 4 different continents: Europe, North America, South America, and Africa. This was published in 2006, and at that time there was an increasing interest among students in the topic of entrepreneurship. And just about at the same time, governments were also beginning to note the importance of entrepreneurship in reducing unemployment and stimulating the economy. At the onset, the author says that the writers adopted quite a broad meaning for entrepreneurship. And in that sense, the purpose of this book really applies to a larger segment of the population because the intention is to learn from the way entrepreneurs cope and adapt to an increasingly complex and global world. Normally, in its narrowest sense, entrepreneurship is taken to be a specific situation involving the creation of a firm, business, or a corporate venture. But in this book, it is also taken to mean the behavior that allows such firms, businesses, or corporate ventures to be established. It speaks of the curiosity and imagination to identify opportunities, the ability to take risks, a spirit of innovation, and the grit to see through building something from nothing. Even more broadly, it would refer to the context that allows such behavior to thrive. It is valuing innovation and creativity through formal and informal support systems in the culture. The book is basically divided into 3 parts. The first part talks about key issues in entrepreneurship education. It deals with definitional and evaluative concerns and raises institutional questions. This section for me was the most interesting one. It was conceptual and asked questions such as: can entrepreneurship be taught, or is one born with it? If it can be taught, are business management and entrepreneurship the same? Or, framed differently, can business schools teach entrepreneurship? My favorite articles were in this section. The second part of the book is about the newness in methodological approaches to teach entrepreneurship. It is largely about pedagogical concepts and practices that might be employed to teach entrepreneurship innovatively inside and outside the classrooms, so that students do not only create new businesses but actually adopt entrepreneurial behaviors. The third and the last part is called Diffusing and Promoting Entrepreneurial Culture and Developing Entrepreneurial Potential. This gives examples of practices relating to entrepreneurial education from other countries, namely Africa, Argentina, Canada, France, and Italy. I would have to say that this emphasis given to entrepreneurship at all levels, from specific situation of business establishment to the broader context and culture that allows that to happen, is really quite timely now in 2019. With the rise of artificial intelligence, we will experience quite a bit of disruption that will require people to shift careers over a lifetime. To mitigate the impact of unemployment and perhaps to reduce the effects of disruption, entrepreneurship as innovation and creativity would create a greater sense of stability. I would not have time to discuss all the articles, but allow me to share with you 2 of my favorite articles. The first one is Learning and Teaching Entrepreneurship: Dilemmas, Reflection, and Strategies by Blenker et al. The second one is To Support the Emergence of Academic Entrepreneurs, the Role of Business Plan Competitions by Canavucciulo et al. First, the article entitled Learning and Teaching Entrepreneurship Dilemmas, Reflections, and Strategies by Blanker et al. Here, they raise questions that are polarizing. They show us questions, the answer for which might be at the opposite ends of the spectrum. For example, are entrepreneurs born or trained? Should entrepreneurship be based on management principles on the one hand, or yet unarticulated entrepreneurship principles, simply because the former cannot capture the spirit of entrepreneurship? Should teaching entrepreneurship be at the individual or collaborative level? And should it be taught within university or while immersed in industry? Rather than hyping up the divide, this article gives us an alternative framework of understanding, and that the answer is somewhere between the extreme ends of the spectrum, that depending on the specific situation, the answer slides somewhere between these two ends. For example, there are concepts needed for entrepreneurship that sits well within the business management realm. For instance, any business or venture would need to be tied to resources and thus accounting. But there are aspects of it that involve creativity and therefore less consistent with the very linear thinking of business management. There are risks as an entrepreneur you would take despite what the balance sheet says. Like a Steve Jobs, you will not rely on market research, a typical management tool, but instead might go out on a limb not to respond to a demand, but rather to create it. There are business concepts that are best absorbed in the classroom, conceptual ideas, but at some point, these must be given the opportunity to take root and grow in depth outside of the classrooms, perhaps under the tutelage of an industry mentor during an internship. Sometimes students might best learn concepts individually, at times in a group. So, as you can see, the questions that he raises and the range of answers that he offers um, provides a framework within which we could approach entrepreneurship education. The second article, entitled To Support the Emergence of Academic Entrepreneurs, the Role of Business Plan Competitions by Canavachulo et al., is essentially about academic spin offs. So I suppose we must first begin by answering the question of what academic spin-off is. It is essentially a business venture developed by a faculty, staff member, administrator, or student, or a business venture developed by someone outside the community that taps specifically into something that was developed inside the university. This is quite a relevant idea now that industry engagement is increasingly becoming a key feature of the modern university. Now, more than ever, the line separating industry, university, and government is blurring as the three sectors engage more closely to solve some of the emerging problems of society today. The article quite hit the nail on the head when it discussed that the key barrier to successful academic spin offs would be a fundamental difference in the way entrepreneurs and academics would view research output, a key area of engagement and often ground for academic spin offs. The academic would see research output as an act of exploration, while the entrepreneur would essentially see that as an act of exploitation. And that could make the world of a difference. The academic, in the spirit of exploration, would take his time, confirm, and prove a theory. The entrepreneur, on the other hand, would seek to patent at the soonest possible time. The academic might want to share these findings so that others could build on it to advance knowledge. An entrepreneur would like to keep it a secret and retain a competitive advantage. The movement of the two views would often be inconsistent, if not diametrically opposed. Difficult as it might be to marry these two views, it is not impossible. The author suggests a slew of formal and informal support to make it a bit easier. Some things, such as financial support, access to market information, would really be helpful. But more than that, there should really be access to informal support too, particularly the use of consultants to aid academics in building academic entrepreneurs' behaviors. These are inevitably experience based, and academics would understandably have more limited experience compared to consultants who are steeped in the real world. All in all, this book was an interesting read. I personally still felt that entrepreneurship referred to the specific situation of building a business rather than the abstract behaviors and circumstances that breed innovation and creativity. But it would make a good read for those in the academe, regardless of the discipline they are in. We do need to adopt the behavior of entrepreneurship because in this day and age, we really need to enhance the adaptability of higher education institutions because, first of all, our survival would hinge on it at a time when there's increasing competitiveness in education locally and globally. And secondly, because it is only by being entrepreneurial as an institution that we could hope to impart entrepreneurial skills, behavior, and spirit among our students. So that pretty much ends my very brief book review. I hope that you were able to pick something up. Again, I'm sorry I'm not there to take questions, but please feel free to flick across an email, and I'll see if I could perhaps answer your questions if you have any. Thank you very much, Dr. Osman. Sorry I'm not there today, but it's been good to meet you, and we will meet you in future courses or maybe in future dissertation defenses. Thanks, everyone. Take care and see you next term.